Welcome everybody to my presentation about trends and best practices in Southeast Asia. And I can honestly say that it's an honor to contribute the third time in a row to the Pet Supplies Fair Southeast Asia. And my special thanks to Johannes, who invited me. And again, he mentioned Matthias. It's a kind of tradition that you contribute. So it's great to share my thoughts, my view, and my experience on one of the most interesting regions regarding to pet supplies in the world. If you have comments, if you feel like sharing your thoughts, please feel free to reach out to me, either via my LinkedIn profile or directly via email, share on our website, wherever you feel like, and I'm very much looking forward to get into the discussion with you. But now let's get started with the presentation. So, as I said, we look at trends and best practices and my personal experience after several years acting in Singapore. Let's get started with a very brief introduction. And as I said, it's the third time I have the honor to contribute, so I will keep it very short. We are basically an exclusive distributor for more than 10 brands, mostly in Southeast Asia, Singapore, Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, but also now reaching out to Japan. And we also do provide private label food, mostly made in Europe, premium quality, a few freeze-dried products also made in New Zealand. I had the pleasure to work with Fressnapf. Most of you will know the top retailer in Europe with more than 2,000 stores as the head of corporate development. And right now, my team and myself, we work a lot as not only as a distributor, but we share our knowledge, our contact, our network in Asia with multinational companies. And for example, we recently worked on the market entry into China. We coordinated and managed the market entry into Philippines and Vietnam for big global pet supplies brands. So far, so good. Here you can also see my contact data. Please reach out, as mentioned, in case of any comments. Just a brief overview of the portfolio of great brands we have in our under our umbrella, and I will talk a bit more about the experience with that later on. And as you can see, I don't go into details. We cover all important groups of animals and, of course, all important niches of the categories. We try to be the one-stop shopping partner for our retail partners or even for the end customer. Having said that, our really tremendous growth over the last years is not enough. We are really looking into more partnerships in the Southeast Asian or Asian region in general. So if you look for a great partner to form a joint venture, if you'd like to become a franchisee for some of our brands, or if you just like to have any other ideas about entrepreneurial opportunities, please reach out, and we are very much looking forward to discuss any opportunities to grab together. But now, after the short introduction, let's look at the trends in Southeast Asia, and I categorize them according to product trends, channel trends, some country trends, and here I make it very short. I think we should definitely have a look at China. For sure, I know that by a very academic, strong and definition, it would not be part of Southeast Asia, but still we cannot miss the recent developments here. And finally, a few words on the promotion. And for the product, let's get started. I will talk about the premiumization. And I say it's the more expensive, the better. You know that trend from the global pet supplies market. We see a big growth of the high-end brands, of the expensive and premium ingredient brands, special preservations like air-dried and freeze-dried and so on. We see a huge growth of the snacks and treats market, probably also based on the pandemic, and which we all know pushed the snacks and treats category As I already briefly mentioned, private label. It looks like, especially in Southeast Asia, the trend for private label has accelerated in the last year, probably as a reaction to the increasing transparency based on the platforms like Shopee and Lazada. So our retail partners look for opportunities to differentiate against established brands. Looking at channel trends, yes, I already mentioned these two guys. Lazada and Shopee gain more and more market share. I will have a look at the other players as well. And I see that the channels differentiate more and more. So on the one hand, we see the growth of the price-sensitive market segment. On the other hand, we see a growth of the premium and very niche market players. And that's quite interesting, not only online, but also offline. As I said, China, we have to have a look at it, and social media. Just a few words on what is going on here. So this will be the agenda. Let's jump in. I mentioned it, first trend, premiumization. And here I just share a few market data, more specifically the price of some freeze-dried products. And I personally am impressed again and again about the absolute price of, here in this case, it's just a 14-ounce bag, which is approximately 400 grams of these premium freeze-dried products. So if we look at nearly $40 for a freeze-dried product, that turns into more than $100 per kilogram if you would scale it up per kilogram. As I said, this is impressive, and this category, at least for the retail partners we work with, is growing at the moment with a significant and over average rate. So it's really impressive to see that even at this price level, the products are selling. This is an example from the Singapore market. We get to know the same trends and the same hints from the other developed markets like Hong Kong, Japan, especially. My Japanese partner, who has about 5,000 POS under his umbrella, he just mentioned, Matthias, bring in whatever freeze-dried brand you can find. We will sell it. We will sell it to any price point, basically. So this is impressive. And again, it shows how much also the pandemic has driven the premiumization of the snacks and treats market. One additional point here, maybe Singapore is a bit special because one of the major players, I don't want to call the name out here, had significant issues in supply chain, like many other brands as well. But we had in Singapore, we saw for the last year definitely also a shortage of and stockouts of these high-end brands, of at least one high-end brand and the assortment. If we look at the snacks and treats, just one figure here, I'd like to compare that. In China, we saw a growth last year, and I'll come back to China more specifically, of a bit less than 20% of the pet food market, which is incredible and above the expectation we all had. But the snacks category especially grew by more than 40%. And this is a kind of ratio which is more or less representative for most of the Southeast Asian markets. When I talk to my partners, they all tell me the same. They ask for more snack brands. They ask for more high-end snacks and treats. They cannot get enough air-dried snacks, raw snacks, freeze-dried snacks, so natural, functional. It's quite interesting to see the snack category developing like that. And one of the MDs of one of the leading treats manufacturer, he told me, Matthias, I mean, we have capacity shortages because we faced a growth of nearly 400% in 2021. And this was mostly driven by Asia, which grew significantly above global average in this category. Let's have a look at one case study. And I think it's nice to have beside the numbers, to have one brand who represents, from my point of view, this development very nicely. And the brand is called Bell & Bone. It's under our distribution in selected Asian markets since quite a while. And this is a brand that was only founded in 2018 in Melbourne by a fantastic founder. Her name is Ariane Segwell, very entrepreneurial. And she did a very in-depth market research and ended up with a product that is high-end, functional driven, air dried. I really mentioned that. And dental treats, that was her starting point. Now she also has some collagen, also functioning products in her product portfolio. Within a bit more than 4 years or 3 years, she managed to be listed in 500 POS in Australia, Hong Kong, New Zealand, South Korea, and Singapore. And if you look at these markets, you can see that with this high-end premium product, she mostly targeted the developed markets in Asia. And she has currently a portfolio of 57 flavors, different products for dog. Just a few words about the products, and then I will show you why this product and her brand is especially successful in Southeast Asia. She focuses on meat as a first ingredient. And by the way, if I get feedback from my retail partners I talk to, they always tell me, Matthias, we need to have products which have meat as their first ingredient in our ingredient list. And also for private label, most of the retail partners we support with private label products, they ask for meat as the leading ingredient. So going away from potato and wheat and starch, whatever. And some of them, or most of them, even want to have grain-free products, and I'll come back to that later. But now looking again at Bell and Bone, it's active ingredients, and it's with collagen, for example, which has a functional benefit for joint, skin, coat, nails, and so on. And this is quite interesting that it's a functional treat. So people want to do good to their dog. And this is one of the trends we see in humanization: focus on healthy food, focusing on a balanced food, and also supplements and ingredients and additional ingredients. Also, based on the ongoing humanization, we see the inclusion of superfood in these products here. And finally, very important for Asia, also a puppy product. And it immediately shows that it's targeted for puppies. So people, new dog owners, they feel very well to buy these kind of collagen sticks, for example, because they know it is made for puppies. So, and they do have a very big range of small products targeting the Asian small dogs. Now, on a more abstract level, what made it successful in Asia specifically, and also the developing markets are looking into this brand. So first of all, it's a premium product. As I said, especially in Asia, we have a differentiation between the eco and the premium range. It's made in a Western market, Australia. In most of the Southeast Asian countries, you face significantly less import barriers for Australian products. Just to give an example, in Singapore, we all know the hazards of the certification of new products for import. For Australia, for Australian products, there are hardly any import regulation, and you can basically bring them in with a normal customs declaration. So this gives a broad range of accessible countries. I already talked about that. Functional benefits, smaller sizes, very important. We sell for private label, we sell the above average, we sell most of the products for small breeds. As you know, the average household is smaller in Asia. The average house, the average living space. So people do tend to have smaller breeds, and this is what we see in the consumption of our food. Finally, we have a playful design, especially targeting the younger generation, the millennials, who are the dominant players, especially online in Asia at the moment. They are highly engaged. They look at the product, they get into the product. So just an example for a Japanese for a Japanese private label range we are currently selling, it is impressive how detailed the customer questions are regarding the products. They want to know every detail about each ingredient. Where is it from? Is it sustainably made? Is it, has it been tested? So, and this is definitely something I have not experienced in any other market in the world, but especially for Japan, they are really engaged, very tedious on the ingredients. Yeah, summing up, this is an example of a brand that was really successfully established in Asia in a quite small range, not to forget about the access to the markets via an established partner and established local distributors. Let's look at, and I mentioned that, the private label trend, and we see more and more of our retail partners to start their own brands, and this is quite interesting. If you are a retailer or a brand from a Western developed market, you will not be surprised and say, hey, we talk about private label brands in our grocery chains, in our supermarkets, in the pet supplies area. We have been talking for the last 10 years, probably. In Asia, this trend is relatively new, and it comes with a slight delay, because so far we had significantly less online share, at least the last years. Now it overtakes the share of online sales overtakes the average in the Western markets. But there was less transparency and comparability in the market. Now the e-commerce, especially the platform business, and I'll come back to that, picks up. By that, transparency increases, and the price transparency and product transparency increases dramatically. This forces the retailers to look at new ways to differentiate. And as you all know, your own brand is one way to differentiate, is one opportunity, be it looking at the margin situation, be it from a branding perspective, customer loyalty, and so on. You know the game, but it really picks up in the Asian markets at the moment. It's one of the drivers, I personally think, and it's not statistically proven, is that the increasing retail partners or online players who pop up at the moment, they look for opportunities to monetize their customer insights. I mean, they know exactly what kind of products, brands, in which size, in which bag, and so on, is sold very well. So for them, it's quite, let's say, not easy, but doable to tailor a brand to the customer's needs. So this is something we see at the moment. The success factors, and I don't go into detail here, as for any other brand, is a clear unique selling proposition. Personally, I think it's also having a premium product, which differentiates from especially Chinese and also Thai products. It's important to have local market insights. For example, Japan, which requires the highest product quality, as I already touched upon. Just to give an anecdote, we see some of our partners to repack the packaged food in Japan, because even the best bags and packagings made in Europe and made in the US cannot fulfill and meet the requirements from our Japanese customers. So they need to repack in Japan, at the same time do a manual product check of nearly every kibble repacked. So it's really something, the quality level is a different level compared to the Western markets. Finally, a lot of retailers currently decide to sell D2C via their websites, via their web shops, and by that gaining even more insights for their own brands. So this is something we see as a big growth area for now in most of the Asian markets. I just like to give an example of one brand from a Singapore retailer. The brand is called Heka, and they decided to jump quite quickly into dog food and to cover basically the whole product range of complete food, snacks, and so on. And it's growing, and they are now developing into a cat brand as well. One of their success factors was a tailored D2C promotion to their existing customers. And finally, they have a USP, and I already mentioned that with Bell and Bone, a clear definition of a clear USP with superfoods. Here it's herbs. Their slogan is, their claim, healing through nature. So here it becomes again obvious that you need a clear USP and tackle the current trends. So this is private label. I'd like to quickly give you an update about the online platforms which dominate the Asian market. And this is insights from the Singaporean market. It gives you the monthly web visits in million in Singapore. So on the top you see Shopee, and they are actually, if you look Q1 to Q3 2021, within a bit less than 2 years, they more than doubled their monthly visitors from 6 million to over 14 million. And Shopee is the #1 shopping destination if you look at the platforms. It's growing across the whole Southeast Asian region because they, if you ask customers, are a bit more looking into the premium segment. They do offer brands and they push the brands in their business. Whereas one of their main competitors, you see here #2, Lazada, they turn more and more into a platform to shop for, let's say, cheaper Chinese products. Most of them OEM most OEMs are, or Chinese OEMs do offer their products directly on Lazada. So the product quality is perceived a bit less than compared to Shopee. That makes 30% growth for over every year for Shopee, 11% for Lazada. And you see only 3% for the player that is mostly known to the Western community here. Amazon only grew by 3.3%. Actually, they are not considered a viable player in the Singaporean market, but also not in the other Southeast Asian markets because of the issues I mentioned last time during last presentation. No superior logistics solutions, significant less payment solutions, for example, no cash on delivery, COD, and so on. And we have the one special case, Q10. I don't want to dig too deep into that, but they are losing ground at the moment. Also, they are more or less focusing on export of Chinese products into Southeast Asia. No branding at all, very cheap, and the result can be seen here. It's -40%. This is just an update on what are the dominant platforms. Here, the numbers again, just to be sure, from Singapore, but the Southeast Asian market looks similar. Just a short throwback into 2020, and it still holds. The success is, of course, based on the pandemic. We all know the effects of the pandemic, but also based on these incredible promotion to the sales date, 9/9s, 10/10s, 11/11s. It's incredible. You see videos, you see ads everywhere. You cannot escape from these promotions by Shopee and Lazada. If we look at the online platforms, I'd like to give you a short insight also in how our category is managing these platforms. And during the last presentation, I showed you some brand stores, for example, by Arcana and others that are selling on Lazada, really playing and pushing their brand. We recognize that also, that's quite interesting, not only the retailers do have also shops now on Lazada, and they really present the products in a nice way, but even the distributors start their own shops. So technically they cannibalize their own customers, their retailers on Lazada and on Shopee. And this is something new. We see that obviously the whole, all players, all stakeholders in the supply chain or in the value chain of the pet supplies category recognize they cannot miss the power of Shopee and Lazada anymore. And they need to play in a controlled way the online game here. Again, this is an example from a distributor in Singapore, B2K, quite a big one, one of our competitors, but still I'd like to show you the example of their Lazada page, and they do it quite well. They have the full assortment of their products in a Lazada shop, driven by promotions, and they are really pushing them with promotions, price promotions, bundle promotions, and so on. We also see, and we talk to really a lot of experts for platform business. This will probably be similar in the Western markets. It's not that much a branding platform, although you have to be present there with your brand to be perceived as a significant player. It's rather perceived as a transaction platform. So you rather get awareness of the brand in a brick and mortar shop, or by a special promotion, or by a niche player who is focusing on the brand. And I'll come back to that in the next chart. You get the awareness, but after you're convinced of the brand, people look for the cheapest and bargain to shop for their product. So these platforms are rather used, and we see that with a lot of service expert discussions, for the transaction, looking at the best price possible. And yes, but as I mentioned, still the brands also run dedicated brand shops. So you see a plethora of offers for the same brand. It's the brand itself in a brand shop called Lasmall, or in Shopee Select or something. You see the distributors, and you see the retailers selling their products. And there's even a gray market. Some end customers now start to sell their products, and bringing the products directly from Europe and also sell them. So you see a mixture of players competing for the awareness on these platforms. Quite an interesting development, and it will be very complicated to really make your way through that, to find your profitable positioning on these platforms. But it will be, from my personal point of view, inevitable in the future. Now, talking of the platforms, here is a counter movement, because platforms, as I mentioned, have increased the transparency and increase also the focus on price, and the pricing becomes more and more transparent and important. So here comes a counter movement in our sector, differentiation. We see more and more shops setting up as niche shops with a very, very specific and dedicated category. For example, I brought this one here. The shop is called Woof Living, and they are only selling dog toys from more than 50 brands worldwide. They are the #1 shop for dog toys in Singapore. And these kind of niches do grow tremendously. They have a lot of product inside. They have a curated assortment in different price categories. And it's mostly driven by, personally, I feel I know a lot of these entrepreneurs. They're really passionate about the pets, dogs, about what they do, about the products, and they know everything about the products, and they develop this niche. For example, here, Woof Living started as a pure online store, but they started a brick and mortar store now in one of the biggest shopping centers in Singapore. They start in Philippines, another shop. So they are developing very well just because they tackle a very specific niche. And this is a trend we see at the moment in the developed markets, in Hong Kong, in Japan, also in Singapore. That's why I just quickly like to give you another example for that. The name is Creatureland Store. And they are distinguishing themselves as an online retailer from these other online retail platforms by really offering a curated portfolio, and especially the high-end photos taken. So the products are really put into a special setting, into a special scenery, and this is quite interesting. The founder is a photographer, but now he's carrying, I don't know, 100 brands and doing a pretty good job in the high-end segment of the online. So what we see is differentiation into niches, and I mentioned it at the beginning, also price-wise, not new to any other Western viewer. If you're watching from established markets in Europe, in the US, wherever, you say, okay, this is a trend. Now it arrives in our category in the developed markets in Asia as well. So a lot more differentiation. The number one player in Singapore and all over Southeast Asia, which is it's a retail chain. They are giving up more and more locations to one other chain called Super Pets. They are focusing on the very price sensitive segment. Here are just a few visual pictures, and they are taking market share at the moment in the brick and mortar segment from the established number one player in Southeast Asia. They open, I'm not quite sure, but even during the pandemic, a dozen shops a year. And it's quite interesting, focusing on price and a very more or less cheap presentation. But yeah, they differentiate themselves. This is that was a price segment. On the high-end segment, again, some players differentiate by providing extraordinary experience. So when I worked for Fressnapf Mexizoo in Europe, I was sometimes laughing and saying, hey, we should measure the success of our stores in experience per square meter, no longer sales per square meter, but what is the experience per square meter? And this is an example of one shop that is really mastering, let me use that word, the experience for pets. The chain is called Pet Master. The founder, Roger Neo, a fantastic entrepreneur in Singapore. He has two brands. One is called Cat Master, the other one Pet Master. And now he has just started a great project in Singapore on the East Coast Park, which is the go-to area for active people, sports people, and a lot of pet owners. And here this shop offers a cafe. It includes a self-grooming, no longer grooming, but self-grooming area. It has a pet water playground. It has a dog pool. So this is experience at its best for our little few friends. I think it's quite interesting to see that as the other end of the differentiation, what I mentioned now. So looking at the next topic, China, and again for the general growth numbers and so on, I'm sure that the fair that Johannes provides a lot of numbers. Other people will provide the numbers, Euromonitor, all these guys. So I don't want to look into all Southeast Asia and comparing growth rates this year. I rather want to give you a short insight on China. Personally, I think you cannot miss China at the moment because there was so much going on last year. We managed the market entry for one leading natural brand in the world. And it was quite that's why I cannot share all insights here, but it was quite an, I would say, eye-opening project to see what is currently going on the Chinese markets. To give you a few hints. So first of all, the total market is $3 billion US in last year. It grew by 16%, which was a bit less than expected. A bit less than 2020. It grew by more than 27%. But we still see a lot of potential if we look forward. We have a pet penetration of only 19% of the population. That is significantly less in the other saturated markets. Japan, 26%, UK, 44%, US, 67%. So you see what is still there to come. We have, if we look at the market entries, more than 10 US brands alone got their MARA certification. And just to give you a bit of background, most of you will know, in order to sell on the domestic market, not via the cross-border e-commerce, via into the domestic market directly, you need a certification by the authority called MARA. It took us about 9 months to push our products through the certification. We have partners there. And and to list our products in China. And it was, we could see that we are really in the right timing. A lot of other foreign brands are entering the market at the moment, and they enter, we always say they came to stay, because they get this expensive MARA certification in order to sell locally, no longer via the cross-border e-commerce, which will be no more accepted by the authorities in the long run. What kind of products are sought after in China at the moment? Mostly grain-free. I touched on that at the beginning a bit. And high-end products, air-dried and freeze-dried. These product groups were with the highest growth rates. To give you one really impressive number, I heard Origin, Arcana, they sold about 600 containers in 2020. That gives you a feeling for the magnitude of the market, magnitude of the opportunity. We have a cat food growing faster than the total market, with 44% annual growth rate in the last 5 years. We see that the number of local manufacturers is increasing, although the Chinese consumers still prefer the Western brands. They check them very carefully. They check the brand heritage. They check the roots of the brand in Europe, in US, Canada. But we also see that a lot of these brands are considering at the moment a local China production, to set up a China production. And I cannot go into the details right now, but it's one trend we definitely see at the moment. Looking at the countries of origin, New Zealand, Canada, and US products are still the most sought after, considered the best in quality and sustainability, even more than some other European markets, based on the high FDA standards and so on. Finally, just to look briefly at the channels, e-commerce is the dominant market share with more than 50%. Alibaba is the #1 group with over 80% of market share. This was just a bit of a feeling or a bit of some insights to give you some impressions about the Chinese market, and also to encourage you to look deeper whether this might be an opportunity for you as well. So finally, looking at the time, as usual, Johannes will call me and say, Matthias, you have to shorten your presentation. Let me briefly only touch briefly on promotion. It's very simple. You need to promote brands in the Asian hemisphere with the latest channels, social media channels, TikTok, Weibo. So you need to be present. You need influencers, and I can dig into more detail in a personal discussion. But it's impressive how these brands, how these channels like Instagram really make up the mind of the young generation. So far so good. Finally, let me conclude. If you look for somebody to work with you in Asia, if you look for a partner to explore the opportunities, be it as a brand, be it as a local entrepreneur, please reach out, and we will figure out how we can explore the opportunities together. Let me say thank you again for your attention. Let me say thank you that you joined this presentation, and I'm very much looking forward if you reach out to share a few thoughts, to share any other opinion you might have. And I can honestly say that I'm looking forward to meet you in person on the booth, in a video at the Pet Fair. Thank you very much, and all the best for you. Stay safe and stay sane.
APC's plasma improves pet food and treat formulas. Important additives and ingredients, plus water, are added to the meat mixture to obtain a homogeneous raw emulsion. Plasma is added last. The raw emulsion is chilled to 12 to 14 degrees Celsius. The final mixture is then transferred to the shaper, which allows us to produce ropes in the targeted size and form. These ropes will then undergo a cooking process. Ropes produced with plasma show low adhesiveness to the surface, high cohesiveness, and high springiness. Pet foods containing plasma are easier to slice with lower crumbling, helping to reduce product losses in the production process. Plasma's superior functionality helps create higher quality pet foods and treats.